Okay, so beginning with out the gate. So typically the first thing you guys think about is, one, capturing A, and two, do we start to pressure B in the meantime? I would say the first thing you really want to call is get your people out to A. Clear any traps that might be at the doors. You want to get out here, see if it's just a light flank or if a combo is holding here. Obviously, if a combo is here and they have beam committed, it might be a different situation. You might have to change who you're all sending to A. But for the most part, there are some teams who can only send a light flank here, and that should be good enough. I'd say going to the point, you just want to maybe check for a couple traps around the point, and the only other thing I would recommend doing is, especially if you are doing an AE or planning to do maybe an AE, maybe you're tight on time, or you just want to do a fast rotate, like fake out the other team to rotate back. I would say it's worth hard sweeping for spy out here on first. I think a couple classes can contribute to it, but there are only so many places to hide, and one of the best things you can do is actually cut off their exit to the spawn. So if you have somebody go to the spawn really quickly, most spies kind of lightly commit here because they don't want to get caught. If for any other reason that they're going to be late to call a rotate if the doors do open through A, they want to be alive to call what classes are going and when they're going. So most spies will be playing for their life here. So I actually think if you are hard sweeping for spy because you need to do some kind of play, whether you're going AE or you just have the time to do it, cutting off their exit on the spawn while you full sweep is a really good idea. Otherwise, A is a pretty light point. Most teams will give it up. Again, different situation if they're full holding it, but that's really just a delay for time. And I will say if they are trying to do an A play, full team, beam committed, even if beam isn't committed, it's okay to bring your beam out, honestly, and do an exchange if a sack does not work. Because worst case scenario, you guys waste a lot of time chipping off 6 or so people over here or a full team over here, and you waste 4 minutes of your time off of some kind of shoddy play that they pull out last second. You don't want that to happen. It's okay to just exchange and get that out of the way if that's a possibility, because, it's 45 seconds to build. You'll be ready for the next point by the time you're ready to do anything anyway. It's not the end of the world. Wasting time could be. So, while that is happening, presuming they don't have a crazy A setup, you're probably going to want some people to come out here and start checking for traps on the way out. Actually, on Pyro, especially if they have A under control, I actually like going out here a little bit early and just checking all these different spots for traps, because there's so many of them, and you probably won't hit them with one detonator. They could be all over these cages here, above this door, above this door. You kind of think of what areas a demo could set up very quickly, especially if they have had time to reset and traps have det and they might set another one. These two spots are probably for that. So while that is happening, you think about what classes are where. So if a light team is going to A, such as your soldier, scout, engineer, you probably have the rest of your combo getting ready to do some kind of exchange over here. Now, I will say, before your exchange, you kind of want to clear your bases. The bases on B is almost always this upper area here, and you want to do that for 2 reasons. One, if you guys were to commit through main and you don't clear this upper area and post, they're going to have all sorts of angles on you, and you're going to feel really pinched very quickly, and that's going to be trouble. And that's even if a soldier is just to rebomb this. That is still a problem. So clearing this and setting up some player to kind of prevent them from recontesting is really important if you don't want to get immediately pinched on the post. Another reason for that is it's going to be another angle that opens it up for your combo. So you will have a player here, and if they're set up and preventing someone else from jumping there, they have another angle that could peek and post and start putting some pressure on the team here and hopefully force them out of this gully area back into this slope. So that's another good reason. Third reason is the teleporter, and this is typically what you want to go for on the sack. Because what makes this area so strong is not just a soldier rebombing here. They typically have a heavy up here as well. The heavy usually takes a teleporter who's set up by an engineer and setup time. They can have time to reset this up, but it's unlikely if you guys play all your steps right. So I would say a good sack to do, and there's a couple of ways you can do this, so don't take my word on this being a straight one. You can take your demo, you can take your heavy, you can take your pyro, pretty much anybody who is not at A, with the exception of maybe one person who holds down main, so whether maybe a heavy, a sniper, and then maybe even an engineer who's sitting here with a gun. And then the rest of you guys come up here and clear this out. oftentimes on my teams, we have used a bonk scout, if anything else, but to eat a little bit of splash as they walk up the doors, and a little bit of body block for the bullets as well. And Pyro is kind of just coming through here. You really just have to hit one reflect. They're not trying to die a lot of the time, so they're not going to just like take the fight until they die. They're going to jump down if it's enough pressure that they feel they're losing. And then your demo or whoever's behind you, who's assisting with the spam out, can try to finish the teleporter. I also think it's fine that if your demo's not getting on their own, you can hop the gap, try to get it. It's even okay if you die for it. Like, if you can get back, great. But if you die for it, it's not the end of the world, because this is a very good trade and you respawn in like 5 seconds. So not a big deal. The only thing you need to worry about when you're doing this clear is a wrap from main, because if you send everybody up here and you don't have a sniper really protecting this box here, maybe they lost to SVS to the defensive sniper, a team could swing behind you and cut off your exit, or threaten your beam or whoever's like buffing you guys up and before you guys go for that sack. So there are risks to it, but I would say as long as you have something preventative set up here, you will have enough time to go for the sack, and even if it fails a couple times, this is a very important step to go through. So, what happens next? You guys have cleared upper. You have set up somebody who I actually think is usually going to be a heavy. Heavy can, bait around here. There is a roller angle that can get your heavy, so, he can chill down here until you guys are ready to peek, and then the exchange goes out. So, the exchange you are typically going into here is there's going to be a pyro holding really close, there's going to be a sniper who's kind of like holding the angle, making sure your sniper doesn't get too deep, and there's going to be a demo nearby. Now, if you guys have cleared right, you might even have the heavy down here as well. So there's going to be a lot of people here. There might even be a soldier here if there's no pressure on E, and we'll get into that. So when you get your exchange out, you really just want the other team to use. That's number one. So you come through this doorway. I would say it's worth soloing on your demo, and maybe clearing for a trap in advance so your demo doesn't get launched to the moon. So he'll solo through. The other team, most of the time, will be conditioned to use. If anything else, because they don't want to lose other players. You should have your pyro nearby, because worst case scenario, you get hooked by an enemy pyro. He's blowing you in the corner. If you have a pyro in 2, they could really just do 1 dislodge, maybe 2, and get your demo out safely. If during the exchange, your demo does have the room to start spamming the gun, that's great. That's definitely something that would be a bonus to get in the Uber, but is not a requirement, because it's really all about what happens in post. You want to make sure you get the Ubers out so that you guys can have a good swing and a good collapse in post and actually start making some moves here. So typically what you're going to want here is a sap on the gun, or enforcer, or something crazy. You're going to want your heavy, etc. to swing at the same time, hopefully to help with that effort, so that when they commit through main again, this is gone, and these guys are suddenly really contested here on the ground. Like, they're all fighting these individual fights. They're going to have a soldier who's pressured to rebomb and, like, get on your heavy up here so that he can have some amount of high ground per post. Like, oftentimes this spy will be going in, even if they're playing on A. Like, a lot of times spy drops down and drop down, and they wait until you guys are starting to take this prolonged fight, and they're going to come in for a pick. And that all happens in post. So this can be a really hard fight, because oftentimes, if you guys have committed any amount of players through the A door, and they're now in lobby or E or etc., you guys might actually be outnumbered in this valley fight here. And even though you have a great setup where maybe you have high ground and low ground here, it is still a tight choke that you're swinging through, there is still a gun to get down, and there's a lot of steps to contribute to. So this is where the flankers come in. So we talked about those guys who went and capped A and what their duty is. Now certainly, even though a 9-man main could work, oftentimes what you see here is the flank, so the soldier and the scout, maybe the engineer, and maybe a spy will come through this area. Now when they come through this area, they have a couple options. They're usually running into 1 spotter, maybe 2, if a spy is playing here cloaked either in the lobby area or over by the D doors. You guys, as a flank, probably outnumber those people. You really just want to bully them back into spawn and make a move quickly to do something else before they get support. More people rotating to help them. So those guys, your guys rather, could either make a play back here to where the second that post begins, you guys could have a flank, however many numbers there are, come through this area and act as a pinch, or force their players to back up and deal with you. And that in turn buys your team space, or it pries players away from their forward defense and makes the combo really struggle with retaking these areas. Because oftentimes the first one to rotate is a soldier, or, I guess it depends. Usually the scout's perma-playing E, so it's usually the scout is in like the spawn door. He gets met with the soldier for some help, and they're going to be trying to take this fight with you guys over here. But that makes it a lot easier for your heavy to get free ground. It makes it a lot easier for your sniper to start swinging in, whether he goes upper or lower with you guys. And essentially, the split could be just a fat DM fight where you get a ton of value off of the pinch alone, or it just pulls those numbers and that has enough value. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Now, this wishbone play is not the only thing that you can do here. You can get on the point as well. So a lot of teams, we see this. You know, the value of getting cap time on E has about the same effect as I think the pinch in that it pulls somebody back. If it is significant enough, like a spy and a scout are not able to control it enough, they are forced to rotate somebody back to E to kind of help with that. And depending on the severity of it, they send more and more people. So the second class you usually see might be the soldier rotating. Oftentimes they might even pull the sniper out of B, which might also make your post easier. The sniper might play from the spawn door with the scout, or they might come over here alone in wishbone, which, you know, has some value for maybe your spy or someone pinching as well. So ultimately, I'm presenting all these options to you guys because B is a very hard point, and it's probably one of the most significant ones for both the offense and the defense. You don't want to get caught in a cycle here where you're spending a ton of time on B. So I definitely implore you guys to kind of have a couple set plans in mind and know exactly what kind of value you guys are going out of them. Because the pinches do work, and if they're not working, you need to have a plan B. Because brute forcing this push over and over and over and losing a lot of time, or having these guys off time with your combo and main, can create a lot of problems. That being said, let me see. Did I miss anything else for B? A couple other pressures that do work is I want to say that if an engineer does come behind, I actually think the behind telly is quite nice. I think a lot of engineers who are familiar with this map might build like a telly on C in multiple places. They might have a level 3 gun over here, and that puts a lot of pressure on the defensive team, because once a gun is built, it relies on a very well-timed play between maybe their soldier and their spy, getting the sap and the play, and if they control those two, it kind of forces the combo to come back and help them deal with it, because if this is significant enough, they can get a lot of time on E, and that's a problem. The other problem that you have to look out for defending B, and I know I'm talking from an offense perspective, so I guess you can think of it like that, is if this is really not working, you can actually rotate your combo all the way through A, and this is where that spy sweep we talked about at the beginning really works. And if you are able to beat the other team, so on an offense perspective, you think about it, you kind of want to get through this area fast and undetected. If you're able to set up a lot of support for your cappers on E, and beam is committed here, likelihood is they call it the second they see your beam is committed, and the defense will be forced to rotate, because that is a problem. That is, a whole team and a whole combo over here means that they could actually beat you to this choke here. They could lock out the doors, they could have people in this like power angle, they could have a demo like stutter stepping the door and prevent you from getting in this box. And if the defense cannot get in this box, they only have one angle that can test the point. And this is a shutter you can very well spawn camp. So this is a, you know, 5-alarm fire for the defense. So you can actually use this as an offensive tactic as well, where if you beat them and want a full hold, you can, or you can force their rotate, and then you guys out-rotate them back to B. And a lot of teams do this, at least in Invite, where they will wait for the second they do the long rotate, and they will be already on their way to drop down. They might have a spy called to check if there's stickies, or if the gun's still up, so that they can at least get through this area with a couple seconds of advantage. You know, even if they have to use, they can take a lot of space and then maybe force the rotating defensive team in a bad position for their post. So maybe they're using from a far back angle and you guys are scattered on the point, but by then, you know, the fight might be a little bit more won. Now, when you are able to get to this area, you know, things are going well for you on B, you're starting to get on the point a little bit in pressure. I want to talk about the setup a little bit, because a lot of teams can lose their speed at this point and lose that advantage that they've just won. So I would actually say the typical setup is you want your combo kind of watching this main choke. They need to be really disciplined with this, because if they wide swing it or take a fight that they don't need to and they die, it's going to be a lot easier for the defensive team to re-swing this and start killing all their people on point. So I actually think it's very good to have maybe a heavy hugging the wall, a demo kind of really spamming out this choke. You want maybe your lighter classes on the point. I think it's good to have your medic kind of bait just a tiny bit. They want to be healing these people, but I think them and maybe a pyro or someone can at least be in a position to catch a bomb if they opened it up with a bomb, and without fully baiting their forward players. But it gives them the opportunity to like prolong the fight and get out, and if things go wary the second the defensive team swings this. Everyone else will be on the point, so you might have a soldier who's like corner spamming over here, you might have a sniper who's set up in like a far angle, whether they be down with the beam or they take like a more positioned angle over here. Your scout's putting a lot of pressure on the cap, your NG's putting a lot of pressure on the cap, you can have your spy at this point. You know, you really just want to put a lot of pressure on, because once they're locked in this box, they have one option. It is to swing out, maybe lead with a bomb, and maybe have a spy go in for a play. And if those don't work, they don't really have too many opportunities to win this point. I would say that maybe the only other thing you need to look out for is typically the defense will have a player in the window. It's usually a heavy. This is a nice little minigun glitch spot for the heavies, so they actually get a lot of value out of that. And they can also send a sniper up here as well. And depending on who's up there, you know, your demo typically is kind of like corner spamming the heavy and making it difficult for that, and everyone else just has to play it accordingly and not just die to it. That should be it for B. The only other thing I really want to mention is we talked a lot about those behind plays here, and I just want to say, I've said it before, if it doesn't work out, it's okay. You have a couple different plans that will work. The one thing I will say, don't stay so hard set to a plan that you guys waste a lot of time on it. It's actually a really good opportunity here that if you guys were to go in for a pinch, or even some point pressure, if you guys die, if you have some amount of trades, you still spawn faster than the defense. So if you guys were to come in behind as a fat flank, you maybe have 3 people die, but you get 1, maybe 2 picks out of it, your post will be better. And I would actually recommend that instead of respawning faster than them, taking the telly, going behind again, it's actually better for you guys to just respawn and come main, because by then, you still outnumber the team here. So this is a very fast spawn. It's actually pretty decent, I think, to die behind and come through main to support your team if the fight is still ongoing. And that will be a good win, in my opinion. So, now we can move on. I think B is good to focus on, because there's a lot of stuff that happens, but, you know, only so much time. So, let's just say you guys get a really good wipe out of B, which is usually the case. I actually think it is worth, before this cap has fully capped, to have your combo go forward. If the demo's down, great. If not, I would check traps and all these doorways coming through. You know, these are going to be the doorways they can really get on exit. So, and the reason it's good to go before the point has capped is because the second the point has capped, this door will lock and it will send everybody back to the C spawn. Now, if you guys are forward and you cut off this doorway here, it means that the team usually has to either risk taking this cross past your team, which you can cut them off for, or they have to just wait until the C spawn opens, and by then you guys are likely already on C. So that's the benefit to delaying. Now when you come through here and you check your traps and you come through here, I actually think it's really good for the pyro to just watch this corridor as you guys pass through, because if there are any people who are trying either to cross late or do something cheeky to your combo, you can pretty much just assure them safe entry and then get them through to C. If you guys are able to get this point for free, wonderful. It saves you a lot of time in waiting for the door later. I actually think it's quite worth having your combo rush to about here. You know, if you can trap the door, great, but if not, there's several good areas for your demo to trap that make it very far and have them cross a lot of space to get back in. So, trapping out this choke over here is great. Everyone else can kind of take control of the point, and really, what it leaves them at that point is maybe making a play by jumping down heaven to hell, like right here, or they have to cross into your demo spam, or they have to go to stealth. By then, these are two unfavorable options against a fully set up team, but at least you know that by limiting your options, you kind of know where to look, or have all the people who are left on your team to look. The only thing I would be very wary of if you're able to take C for free is if you commit your beam through here, maybe you say, oh, well, it's even, or it's add, or I guess maybe the biggest thing you actually have to worry about, sorry, is disadd, because a team technically could use out early, and it's usually not great for them, but they could use out early, kill everybody, and retake the point. Now, what's hard about that is coming through and having to use early. If you guys get an early call on this, you can still make it pretty far away by the time, you know, they come through and actually threaten you with their ad uber. That being said, if you commit your medic, you do risk the possibility of getting flanked behind. Like, if they come through here, or they use from here, and you guys are committed, you might lose your free C, essentially, and your medic is caught. Now you guys are in a cycle of disadd, which makes it a lot harder. It's not impossible, but, you know, you've lost what would have been a great time advantage just by rushing through to C. So it's something to be wary of. I think maybe having your medic play a bit longer of a leash here, and then if they use, as long as they don't go to the balcony, you could have a little bit of time maybe to kite back to Wishbone, which hopefully is very safe at this point. The only thing that really threatens you from this position is, again, people dropping down from heaven, such as their soldier or their heavy, and then being here for your exit. Soldier demo can splash this gate, so even though you were standing on it above, you will take full damage from someone hiding below that you might be able to see. And, you know, this is a very good flank. So something to be wary of, both on offense and defense, that is a pretty good pinch play, but it does come at the risk that a team would be taking by Ubering back into C. So let's say you guys have not freely gotten C. You have to reset. So resetting is fine. It's realistic a lot of times. Couple options that you can do. So against a team that is holding in Wishbone, this is going to be a little bit harder. If they have a forward hold, like they've boxed you out, you don't really want to swing into a ton of damage, like this is pretty uncomfortable to do without Uber. I would actually recommend having a couple players go to the slow door up here. This is named appropriately. It takes a little bit to open, so you'll probably be waiting a couple seconds for this to get set up. But if, as long as your combo is staying alive and keeping well, you are waiting for them to have an opportunity to come in from above and threaten these guys below. And the reason this is really a threat for the defense, even if they rotate to meet you, you are often on the defense very outnumbered at this point, because the defensive team is only really going to have a combo here. They're going to have maybe a demo, a medic, they might have their heavy, they might have their sniper, but that's pretty much it. Everyone else has another role at this point, because the map is starting to open up. So likelihood is their engineer might be in heaven. They might have somebody with them in heaven. It's going to be a heavy, or it's going to be a soldier. And then there's going to be a scout, which is a big question mark. You know, the scout could be on C, the scout could be roaming lobby, they could be spotting, like, any flank that might get through to you guys at this point, such as, like, Death Hallway. It's a long rotate, but, you know, it could be a play they can do. So a defensive team is really going to be threatened by people going big door. So if this is well timed, and you have, like, a heavy, a soldier, a scout, I'm trying to think who else comes from above, or even if you, like, whip your soldier up here, like, it's actually worth maybe sending a lot of people here, at least just for a second, because you can very easily just win this off of numbers, or force them back into a passive position, in which case they're probably still going to lose off of numbers unless their sniper goes crazy and hits like 5 of you. So this is a solid play, is what I'm saying. The other thing you can do, you can, I mean, just as fairly rotate your beam and have your demo, you know, take your medic through to slow door. It's the same kind of pressure against a team holding out here. If they're in the wishbone and they have a more numerous, better healed, more high ground team come above them, it is not a great position for the defense. They're going to either get trapped here, or they're going to have to drop to the floor and hope to play a prolonged fight where they just win off of, like, damage and smarter decisions, or they're going to thrust forward. But likelihood is, against a team going above them, they're inevitably going to get forced out to the back of this area over here. So once that happens, a lot of teams can take this just off of that on its own. Like, this team is not going to be able to successfully hold unless they rotate more players, and that's where that pinch comes through again. You know, a defensive team could hold this if they have a very well-timed play of walking forward while their people drop down below, or maybe they have a scout come behind, their roaming scout come around Tldr and like flank the team up here, kill their sniper, etc., etc. So there are plays that the defense can do, but it is hard. So those are things I want you to consider doing C. I would say the only other thing that you can maybe do is if you have Wishbone, you also have the option at this point to start threatening the point. And this is something that is actually very valid, not just for capping C, but in an endgame situation where maybe you have a very fast time that you need to complete. You won't have the bridges up, but you can certainly, once you capture B, start playing for E. Now, you could do this very quickly. Maybe you have Wishbone right off of C, and your plan is to not even try to wait for Tldr. You just want to try something else to force them off of the point. So you can actually bust through over here. Typically you're facing a sentry gun around this area, and you are facing probably a very light flank, as I said. You're going to have like an engineer and maybe like one person protecting the engineer. It's usually like a soldier or something. If you guys are able to swing this, and maybe your spy is already in position ready to come up here and get a sap on the gun or enforcer the gun, usually what happens is your demo can free spam it. They're not going to have much support. They might be forced to wrangle. You can get over here, get your sniper to start taking peeks at it. You know, you can put a lot of pressure on a gun here and actually get these picks before the combo can even come and help them. And then you can start getting players on point. You can have your soldier, scout, pyro, you know, these are classes that can jump on point just for a second, and really your intention here most cases is to get the team to rotate, because if a combo is set up here, it's the same thing as when you're holding B. This is a real threat for the defense, because they have a really comfortable setup, and they're going to start getting some serious cap time that their flank can't do on their own. So if you do these, if you do these steps correctly, you will get a lot of point pressure. And the second you hear that they are rotating off of C, you can actually jump off the point and retake C and go through the steps as if you had fast taken it to begin with. That is a free C, and free C is always worth it because you get gates. And by gates, I mean you get the bridges that go to the point, and that's going to make it a lot easier for like endgame capping scenarios, even if you have a tight time. Now, if you do think you have too tight of a time, or maybe this just is working out so well for you that you want to commit, it's perfectly okay too. I actually think if you were full-time committing to this, and maybe you have like beam healing, like Wishbone or something, and you have like a comfortable setup here. Maybe you have like an offensive engineer who's like catching them off from the opposite side of Wishbone. I would say the setup you want besides sniper in the slow gate here is having somebody jump up top above them. And the reason for that is, whether it be a soldier or a demo, they could trap out these two doorways, and this is really the only angle a team has to contest this. And even if they're not walking out and physically dying to this, it is a really bad peak for the defense. I mean, they are either swinging into a very unfavorable sniper angle, slash team that is otherwise set up over here, or they are like blindly coming out into a doorway that really opens them up to just being juggled over and over. So if you get this position, oftentimes you can either get a full cap or a lot of forcing the resub, which you can get your team significant time. So what I'm trying to say is this is something you can full commit to if you want to. Just if it's not working out, don't waste all your time and all your nice little advantages on it. Like, it's okay to take your win and take the rotation if that's like your minor victory in this situation. It's a pretty good one. Okay, so at this point you have C, most likely. So you have two rotations, and these are the most unfavorable rotations. Actually, three, sorry. They're very unfavorable rotations. You can punch it Death Hallway, which is here. You could go back to where you came from and do this rotation through Wishbone, and you can maybe do what we just talked about, where you either pressure the point from here and get this and get on cap immediately, or you take the rotation to just go through the lobby really quickly, because inevitably, when you're down to D&E, you do want some semblance of lobby control, probably. Or you are going to be forced to take the long rotation out all the way to A from the spawn, and that's a long one. Not super favorable, but, you know, it's something you could do. Or you can kill bind, but, you know, we're not talking about that option. Let's talk about why each one is good or bad. So, Death Hallway, even though the name sounds quite intimidating, is actually not the worst solution here, because a lot of the times when a team is forced off of C, they're not just chilling in the spawn waiting for what you're going to do. They might set a trap or something like this, but likelihood is a lot of the time the combo is forced to go down to E to help with the heaven doors. They pretty much lost C. There's nothing else they can get a value here. They're either going to go physically to D or they're going to go to that heaven spot I just talked about. So if that happens, you would actually want your spy in a position to call if Death Hallway is safe or not, and they can immediately call you through. So maybe spy's capping point with you, they check the hallway, they say, come Death Hallway fast. You guys come through here, you bust through this doorway, obviously you're passing 2 spawn doors on the way, and you get onto D. If D is free, like they're holding heaven and they're late to rotate, you take this. You trap out the doors, you know, hopefully by now has some semblance of control in lobby because the only people that can be over there are maybe like a roaming scout or soldier. But for the most part, they're all trapped in the spawns at this point. Likelihood is they're confined to this area of the map. So if you can hold this out and have this angle to rotate to if things go badly, that's great. It's even fine if you come through this doorway here, you take like a fat team fight, and you get any trades and die. Like, it's actually fine if you wipe here, if you get some amount of trades and value out of it, because we talked about the other 2 options. If this doesn't work, you're coming from those directions anyway, with probably low percentage Uber. So, like, it just kind of fastens that process of, if you get trades, great. If not, it's okay, because we're back where we wanted to be anyway, of option B, which is coming through the spawn and retaking lobby the traditional way. So, any amount of trades you have is great because it will open up that future lobby push. If you just win the team fight or win the exchange, also great because now you get D and that will lock out these spawns. So powerful, right? Now, the other 2 options are maybe, you know, you hear that they're hella holding Death Hallway and this doesn't sound very appealing anymore. So you're like, okay, well let's try to rotate back from where we came from. We go Wishbone. If you go Wishbone and the team beats you to it, this is going to be hard. I would say if there is a combo here before you are rotating back through here, it is a pretty hard call to say even try to do this. I think it is very comfortable spam for an enemy demo, enemy soldier, etc., to just spam the heck out of this doorway, and you guys are going to have trouble getting through here. I see a lot of teams, not so much anymore, but like especially back in the day when this was popularized, the faster combo rotate here, they pretty much eliminate this as an option because it's already pre-spammed and they're already set up. So instead of wasting time butting your head in here, dying a bunch of times, and then having your team awkwardly trapped here, you know, if that's not an option and Death Hall is not an option, it's okay to just rotate back to the spawn. It presents another issue with pushing lobby, but it's not the end of the world, and wasting time on steal is really the catalyst you want to avoid. So the third option is, again, this setup. If you have picks from that sack you did earlier, fantastic. If not, you're probably against a fully set up team. Now, the defense has options here. They could hold this doorway and make it very, very hard for you guys to push in, or, you know, maybe they don't have the players for that. Maybe, you know, it doesn't work out for them well. They could also just be holding on D. If you can freely take lobby, do it. Because, you know, even getting to here is great, because now you have an option to maybe swing this with your sniper, start to get down the gun setup in heaven, and do some pressure that can get you onto the point from this side, which forces the combo to rotate if this is daring enough. If not, you know, you can discuss an exchange or some kind of post here that has a split push between these 2 directions. That being said, most of the time, I think a lot of teams do still hold a lobby door, so what you're looking for here is an opening. Because busting through this into full spam, again, it's gonna not be very fun. You're probably gonna get blown up. There's a lot of people holding close. They're very well healed. They have so much spam flying in the air. They probably have traps that you need to check as you bust through. So the plan you typically want to do is make some kind of play with your flank and with your spy. So if a combo is holding forward and they have a heaven set up, you can kind of be rest assured that they probably have a very light, if not non-existent defense from Death Hallway. So if your flank is ready to rotate through here at this point, I actually think having a flank commit from behind / a spy that goes for any play in this general vicinity is a really good way to open it up. Then you can swing it pyro demo, you know, even just, they just kind of push everyone back. Now suddenly you guys are scattered, you have more space, and you're taking a DM fight in this lobby. Spy doesn't even need to necessarily get a pick, but I mean, if they can avert eyes for 1 second as you guys bust through, that is good enough, honestly. Like, that's a lot of value here, and that's what makes, I think, lobby a risky point for the defense these days, because it's a little bit more tested. This is a bit harder, obviously, because if a team is fully set up here, likelihood is they have some semblance of control of it dry, and it's going to leave it to Ubers maybe opening this up and having a great post in order to win that fight. But as the offense, I actually think you guys should be considering that trade situation. Because unless you are wasting a ton of time trying something and then, you know, losing respawns anyway and, like, it's just not working out, a lot of the times if you just keep busting in and going for those trades, like, it's actually okay if you lose some important picks here, because you will still respawn before them and inevitably be able to take this point. So, not the end of the world if this is the team fight you guys are confined to. I would say the only thing you want to be a little wary of is, you know, when it is one from this direction, you are passing a very sight line. Otherwise, you know, once you get on D, it's the same thing as if you came Death Hallway. They're confined to the spawn doors, and their only hope for survival here is to have a very well-coordinated swing out, or Uber. So, I just want to say the setup real quick. I actually think it's maybe a little bit better to have your demo plug this hallway, and everybody else watch these spawns. Your pirates should be probably watching for spy, but otherwise there probably aren't going to be many people on the lobby side, and maybe a scout at best, and you're really not looking for too much. Everyone else is just kind of hoping to delay and win this damage fight. So now you guys are out to a very favorable position. If you capped D, fantastic. If you haven't capped D yet, this is still pretty much the setup that you guys have to go for at the end. Once you get control of this general area, or even the A door, the goal is always, how do we kill Heaven next? Obviously running through this hallway into a setup without some amount of plan is going to get you guys fried, because a gun will destroy you from this angle. Like, it is very, it's longer than you think. So, you kind of want some kind of coordinated play, I think, to take Heaven at this point. Playing it slowly and not just having your demo blow up is very important, because they are one of the key players here in order to maintain your guys' win. So, the setup you're looking at here at this point might just be more than an engineer and soldier. You might have a heavy up here, you might have a combo up here. You know, this is their last defense, especially if they've lost D. These spawn doors are actually trapped now. They have no other way to get health or run to safety. This is like a final stand for them, unless they were to kite across the bridges and take another angle. That being said, waiting for a sap or pick or something for maybe your soldier to bomb from hell again, I think is a really good play in that direction. Otherwise, you can take it, as we talked about earlier, to this long direction. Your sniper can get really set up here. You can get him to old spawn. Like, this is threatening. If they don't have a flank that can deal with this at this point, a combo who is trapped and confined to these doors over here is probably playing a losing fight eventually. So, it very much relies on the offense protecting their sniper in these positions. They coordinate to get the gun down together, and then you guys can take the bridges to the cap. Now, if you guys are able to get to the E cap, you have to think about your setup, because although spawns are long on the defense, they are not endless. So, what is everybody watching at this point if you guys manage to get to the E cap? I would say, typically, you want your demo... I don't know if this is a set plan. I actually think it's a little bit better for your demo to follow wherever the beam is going. So, like, meet the enemy combo. Because as much as they are a choke stuffer, you kind of want them to focus on doing the same for your team, like preventing the easiest free access to damage all players that are sitting in this confined area. So if your demo is able to meet and stuff a predominant doorway without risking their life or putting themselves in harm's way, that's fantastic. Everyone else is kind of, I think, set up as follows. You typically have one person set up on Heaven. I actually think if it's not permanently your demo over there, it's probably better to have like a soldier or someone similar. You want somebody to kind of control Hell. I actually think it's pretty decent for a soldier to play up top unless someone important is called Hell. And then, you know, if it's a sniper or somebody, they could always drop down and take that fight. Or vice versa, if your heavy is up there, that's a really good situation, I think, even for your heavy to drop down and take that fight. If not, those players are interchangeable. You might have soldier heavy / here. Wishbone is a call, because obviously this is a pretty tight area for them to cross into, and like what we talked about earlier in the map, this is really just the box angle you need to deny. If you can deny the sightline, it doesn't matter if they're all wishbone. Like, if they're chilling over here, they're not doing anything, and if they're chilling over here, they're not doing anything. So you really just have to play to prevent them in the box. If the call obviously is the combos over here, you know, they can stuff that accordingly. But if not, it's going to be pretty light classes. Likelihood is it's going to be you know, whoever's coming from this area at this point of the game. It's like 1 over 2 rotations that they have, and light classes will meet light classes. You also want to be able to see lobby, but if they come lobby, this is a really long rotation and it's very visible. So you'll have time to see them come through these areas, and you can meet them if need be, or, you know, confine them to a very unfavorable swing on their behalf if you want to keep playing on the point. That being said, I think those are kind of the power angles to account for. You really just need people to be kind of like disciplined on like what exactly they're watching when passive. And then once the important calls come out, such as, you know, where the sniper's speaking from, or where the beam is going, or where the soldier is going, which is a very important call in my opinion, then those classes dealing with them can react accordingly. That being said, I think there's one other really good thing that can be set up here for Wishbone. I actually really like the gun over here. If anything else, even if your engineer is technically doing this alone, it means that it delays another team. It either stops or hard delays a team coming over here because they would have to deal with the gun first, since they can't swing into this as long as this is a counter angle on their behalf. And so if they have to swing this and your soldier or someone's playing on the other side, that is a very powerful like splash cross where they're dealing with so much pressure from both sides they might not even be able to peek the point. So something to consider if you have your engineer and soldier or whoever else is playing this angle, if they want to counter up and just play like a really good delay like that, I think it's good. That being said, the offense, if not sniper old spawn, a lot of times they go in the window at this point. So, I think that pretty much covers most things on Steel offense. That being said, we've covered a fair amount of the defense as well. I want to make sure that there are no questions at this point, because I think we probably did kind of talk about the setup in a lot of cases, but I'm going to quickly go through the defense once I finish the pause for questions, just to make sure those gaps are filled. Anyone have anything right now?
I have a question.
What do you got?
So after you cap C, if you don't carry like that momentum to D, and you have to reset, like what's the merit in trying to go for D? Like, um,
Trying to go for D off a death hallway?
yeah, or not
Or
death
just in
hallway,
general?
but in general, like why not just cap E?
Well, you could certainly cap E, but it is really hard to cap E while they still have access to these spawns. It just means that they have more options for filing out. Like if you were able to cap D, for instance, they only have the option of coming out this spawn door right here and either going into this unfavorable hallway or doing the long rotation A, or they're forced to come out C and go all the way through the wishbone. So pretty much for a capping team, you really have to worry about stuffing this corridor, and this corridor. You don't have to worry about here, and you can safely hold some people up here knowing that they have to bust out this box that's on low ground for them. So certainly if you're able to get it, it is very good. Just because you force them to do these like long kind of losing rotates, as opposed to still giving them access to keep resubbing and forcing into your players here. Because I mean, eventually, since you don't have a beam up here, like you might lose these players just to people continuously forcing them out. Because I think a team capping, usually, again, they have a soldier up here, and their soldier is going to be playing to splash the spawns. They might back up into this area and ability splash right here. But eventually, if a team is able to get these doors freely, they could win that, and they could retake this area. And it's going to make it a lot harder for your team to cap D as long as they have control of this vicinity. And then you're down a player who probably worked hard to get there and is hard to set up again. Whoops. Sorry, I died.
Okay, I also see some teams like setting up an engineer in heaven, like
Ooh, okay.
preemptively to lock down heaven before defense gets to that. Like, how early do you need to set that up?
So
And
typically
is it
it's
even worth it?
I think you always want to engineer here on defense. We're talking about that, right? Defense? Or
No,
offense?
offense.
Offense. You know, I'd say it could work. Because certainly if you think about what an engineer is doing at this point, like you guys are pushing, you've won B, they were likely either already in lobby at this point with a gun maybe set up or something like that, or they were set up behind, maybe they lived the whole time to assure you guys free access to C. They're going to be in this area. So they could either come through with you guys just to assure the cap on C, or they could do something with their time over here. I'd say on offense, it's going to be pretty hard for an engineer to get set up here because usually the defense is already set up at this point. You guys as a flank would have to get a pretty crazy crunch on these guys early in order for your engineer to do the long cross and then get set up over here. It's certainly possible. I would actually say the most common time for this to happen is probably while you're still pushing B, because I imagine if a flank is really successful here, you know, your scout soldier are getting on cap, they can actually like escort your engineer all the way over through the lobby area, and at this point, you know, it's a scout and a spy. We're going back in time, and at this point, it's just maybe a spy playing these doors or in the lobby. But I mean, no one's really here to stop them. If they got a setup at this point, it means that their flank is boxed out while you guys are capping C, and that actually could be an advantage for you guys if they're able to do something like this. Just because likelihood is, if their team can't get heaven at this point when they're defending C, that is, again, big alarm for them. That's a big problem. And they might have to rotate their combo to clear it out, and if they don't, well, then you guys have a free heaven for post, and that's going to be really free for you guys to rotate back there, knowing that heaven is already secured. You can get on point after capping C, and this will be wonderful for you guys. But likelihood is something like this would force their combo to deal with it at this point, and you guys might get C for free. That being said, you know, both of those scenarios sound really good, right? So, you know, you might think I should do this every time. That being said, I mean, if it's not working, don't waste too much time for it, because obviously this is a really long rotate. It's probably hard for them to get a level 3 up and alive and, like, reliably do this every time. So it's one of those things where, like, if they can do it, fantastic. I actually think, especially if you're going for full E, having, like, the engineer heaven and somebody, you know, protecting the doors and even having your sniper watch, like, Wishbone is a really good angle to even pressure a team who's rotating from B and is trying to contest this area here, because if you think about it, if that's the setup, they actually can't walk forward too much because, you know, they have a sniper up here and protected in the window. They're kind of confined to this box. They can't retake E because they have the gun up already, but I think this is no longer like the full send that it used to be, because teams kind of started realizing that all they have to do is shoot the point. They don't need to force their way back into this. They can deal with it at the appropriate time. And a lot of the times too, like, you don't even need to peek a gun from here. Like a sniper, for instance, in the spawn can clear the point without having to peek a heaven setup. So they could be wasting their time up here. That's all I wanted to emphasize. Like, it could be a great plan to force their combo to deal with it, or have some safe passage for when you guys cap C and want to take this area if this is set up. Those are great options, but it's not an end-all. So if it doesn't work, you know, have a plan B in mind, is what I'm saying.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Definitely a good play, though. I just think it's not like the end-all full cap for B anymore. It's just, it might be good at the point of C, but otherwise, I mean, you might have your engineers somewhere else, and because they have it set up here, and that's fine. If they have it set up here, it is what it is. Yeah. So let's talk about filling some gaps real quick from the defense. We talked about kind of what to expect on the B push already from the offense. So defensive side, you guys are set up in this position. I talked about what classes are where. One thing I want you guys to be a little bit wary of. So when the gates open and you guys are just chilling, you know, nothing's really happening yet, maybe they're capping A. Really the only person who should be peeking this angle is probably your sniper. They don't even have to peek it super aggressively. They just kind of have to play an angle where the other team kind of has to go their way into them, as opposed to maybe taking a very daring fight and dying too early. Because sniper here for post is certainly a strong thing. You want to try to keep them alive if you can. If anything else but a deterrent. So for the rest of you guys, if you have this call that the sniper is on B, probably no reason to stutter step this or risk dying. Even as the pyro, like, a lot of times you are playing for the cross at this point, because this door is closed, and at most the spy can come through B, cross from upper, or they're coming all the way around once the A door opens to get behind you on B. Otherwise, you know, they have like one option of getting in, which is here. So a lot of times you'll see pyros kind of just doing this like mindless little like flame in the front. You gotta be a little careful though, because if you might want to check on sniper just how daring this sightline is. They can actually see you if you go too far forward, so your flames might not stretch all the way. I would say if you don't want to take that risk, it's good to just play the cross from here, and then it will make it very hard for the spy to get in through main, and at most you know that they can get up here on the stairway, and that helps you reduce the amount of crosses for post. That being said, the second the A door opens, drop down also opens. So I think typically you only want to play this cross by checking for so long, because once this opens, now the spy can come from over here and it's going to force you back a little bit. So I would start playing this cross, just kind of blowing left and right here so that the spy cannot cross from drop down. And then again, you've reduced that the only place they can cross from is all the way behind, or they come up here, or maybe they cross from the top. Which they should be aware of, because if your players up top are aware of it, this hopefully eliminates this cross angle as well for the spy. Another thing that forces you off of that area is typically when a team is getting ready to push, the demo starts letting some sticks about right here. They don't even necessarily have to peek a sniper very wide for this, but those stickies actually do quite a bit to the pyro here. They actually will not physically be able to hold close enough anymore, because these stickies will dead semi-close to them and start forcing them back. So even though it's not favorable for spy checking, it's better to stay alive for the exchange, because eventually they are going to bust here, and offensive team can also do a sack here. And a sack, you know, obviously is not with Uber, but if you are already forced back, they can get a lot done by wide swinging this as like a 5-man team or a 4-man team or whatever their sack composes of. So something to be wary of, I think, at this point is once I'm forced back, I'm pretty wary of the possibility that they're going to sack, just because I know that this is usually intentional. Like they don't want the buyer here for a reason. They want to make sure you don't get like full corner stuffed. And if I'm forced back, I'm like, okay, get ready for something like this, because the only sacks on this point are either they wide swing through main, like I said, maybe they take down the ladder, or they try to get a pick out of it because the offense has nothing to lose, just going for a pick or two, maybe getting a force, or they're going to do something crazy like sniper drop down. So as a demo man, or the demo on your team, they should always, in my opinion, set a trap here the second the gate opens. You don't have to, but you know, there's consequences to that. You know, they could come through main only, but you never want to react too late of a sniper dropping down here and headshotting your medic before anyone can react to it, and that can obviously happen very quickly. So just to be looking out for something like that. Now, that being said, there's some even trickier plays where sometimes there's like a DR spy who drops down as a sniper, and then the actual sniper drops down. So, you know, if you want to get into mind tricks, there are a ton of options, I think, for silly stuff you can do to open up B, but I just want you to be aware of the normal threats. Now, the other threat you need to be careful of, if a team has lost upper, now if you still have Uber, you can still hold main. I actually think it's actually better to, once you have dropped down, like your heavy realizes they've lost it, the telly's gone, they've dropped down on the ground, you can actually maybe trade places with your demo and your heavy. So the heavy instead goes main where the demo was previously spamming, and the demo can kind of go up into a position where they're spamming the up top players, making it very uncomfortable or unhealthy for them to be up here in post, and that can increase your chances of holding this point longer. Now, if this happens very quickly and they're not able to do that, or maybe you lost somebody entirely, especially if you lost your demo, you cannot hold here for post. It's actually better to just realize that you do not have the players to deal with a pinch and back up and hold from like this more traditional angle, like testing the valley, maybe open it up with a bomb and fight from here, than to sit here until it's too late. Because a lot of teams, I think this is manageable because, oh, we have them in the choke, and then, you know, they're eventually going to lose to the numbers that are piling in. So that's just something to be aware of. So I talked about the recommit here when we're on offense, so I think that's kind of your end-all option if you're in this situation. Same thing for holds on the defense. We talked about this. I think typically, you know, when there is a wishbone team, you typically only have maybe a demo, medic, pyro in this general vicinity. Your pyro will be extra aware of, I think, some spy angles here, but I think you kind of want to sit a little bit far away. Like, you want to sit in a situation where you don't need beam too much, because even if you were reflecting stuff here endlessly, your ammo is not long enough to sustain you. So I actually think it's better to just let your demo get tanked than waste some of the health and the ammo in this area. Just let him, like, hard stuff this for the most part, and he will be nearby to support or bail them out if things go bad. And your heavy, even though he can maybe start in that area, I actually think is better to just be gone from the beginning so they don't eat all that splash for the team sitting around them, and they can start kind of spotting big door, because there's some like head glitches up here on this rock that you can spot for, and then based on the severity of the call or who's going up there, you guys can rotate and contest accordingly. same thing when you back up to the point. We talked about this on defense, kind of like how your swing would have to go or who you would need to pinch with you if all went bad. Again, pushing back into this with with add, even though it sounds juicy and delicious, it's probably kind of still a bad situation as long as their team is holding close. So, pick your battles wisely. I think having defense disadd really sucks. So I personally am not a big fan of coming through here and either losing our add or our even status to potentially get steamrolled through the last 2 points, which are arguably a better hold. I just think it's not worth it. So then we talked about this as well. So when there is a team on D where they're going to be holding, they could be holding close in the lobby. They could be holding here on D point, in which case this is a team fight, and you need to know where your team is going to kite if things go badly, or, how you want to contest it here. But as a defense, if you know they're going death hallway and you're ready for it, like, certainly you can win this fight, especially if you have somebody in the spawn who is ready to late pinch and commit, and that can be a very winning fight. And likewise, let's rewind just a tiny bit. We were talking about holding C, and if things start going badly on C, I actually think it is very, very, very worth it to rotate here for a second and make sure your Heaven players are set up. Your Heaven being taken for free is a big threat on defense. Like, if your engineer is ever calling for help and say, we got wiped, they took Heaven, even if you guys are holding D, that is a problem. You do not want to just be like, oh darn, like our players got wiped on Heaven anyway, and then keep holding up here. Like, that's actually going to be a problem for you guys later, and a really big one at that. Because this is hard to play against, especially when you're already backed into a corner. So you want to try to get ahead of it while you still have the time and the combo is not supporting this defense on their behalf. So that's something else I want to mention just to be aware of on the defense, is having your Heaven taken is a big problem. You want to leave a player with them, and your engineer should also be very aware of what it means to be alone. If they're up here, they're building a gun here, they have maybe a reverse heli, maybe they don't. If they're alone, it's going to happen. You need somebody around here, if anything else but to spy check for you, because if you can deny the sap, they don't really have many plays to open this up as a lone flank. They need the spy to do something to the gun so that a soldier can take this area. So that's the goal of the protector up here. And if they happen to lose, or maybe they rolled out alone, maybe they made a mistake, or maybe they just lose that spy fight because somebody didn't pay attention, it is an issue for the combo. And I would actually say it is better to rotate and deal with it and retake an area like D rather than lose everything. So that's why I think when losing C, it is actually maybe a little worthwhile to come out here and get control of this area, because although it might give the possibility of them coming Death Hall, you can at least make sure your team is set up and healthy and protected. If they are already healthy and protected and they're going Death Hall, you can still beat them to it. You can actually either rotate through here if you know the sniper is not in the doorway. That is very important. If you know they're not there, you can rotate through here and you can still meet them anyway. And, maybe somebody in the spawn will pinch with you. Or, if you're a little bit late, they've already jumped down, it's fine to actually take it through the spawn. And I would actually take it through the spawn too if there's any ambiguity of where the sniper is. Just because it's a little bit safer. Like, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to come through and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and you guys bust out of your doors, and whoever is everywhere else will also come through at the same time. That being said, if you have the potential to choose, talk about where you want people coming from in this situation in advance. There are options, so I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it because there is not one set way I think it works. But at least last season, our team liked to take our beam this way just because our demo felt very comfortable in busting through and getting a lot of initial damage from this doorway and cutting off their exit, while other people open this up for them to hopefully detract from some spam or open it up in post. That being said, I do think the threat of this area is it kind of requires your pyro's attention. If they're not reflecting stuff, this is a pretty fat choke for the defensive demo. Like, they're spamming the heck out of you guys in here. So even though it is advantageous for your demo to retake from this area, it is the same for the other demo. So you just want a very good push peek from other angles, if anything else, but to make sure that they have one less resource compared to you guys coming through this doorway. Like, if their pyro for instance, is trying to do this as well, but they're getting dumped on by a heavy from up top, you know, that'll help. So, that's pretty much the only situation I would talk about. Like I said, if you have a heaven set up in advance, it is okay to start on D and prevent them from going Death Hallway if you find that to be the most threatening. The only benefit this has is getting your flank set up, or if you know that they are rotating out of C, not Death Hall. Like maybe they feel too uneasy, maybe it's not their plan. If they are rotating through Wishbone, and you know that, and you're here by default, like they should not be able to get through this door. This is a very powerful thing. It's going to be the same situation as your engineer protector. Like if you have one person spy checking, and at this point, if the whole team's here, you might as well have the pyro spy checking. Everyone else should be able to put a lot of pressure in plugging this doorway, and this won't even be an option for them. And at this point, you have forced them to rotate the long way back through spawn. And that buys the defense some time, and also some time to rotate yourselves, if you know they're gone, to meet them either at the D doorway or the lobby doorway. And we talked about what that setup would look like. So at this point, I think I've talked about every single situation. Maybe besides the defense and what they have to do and end all, like all the doors are locked, they need to get back on the point situation, but we already kind of talked about those angles, so at that point it's kind of a Hail Mary. Does anyone have any questions now that we've covered everything?
I have kind of like a ridiculous question.
Nonsense. That's fine. What's your
Okay.
question?
So why don't people just hold A? Like what's...
I will say this, knowing my team has held A.
Okay.
It is not a great hold, because if you were to wipe here, B is arguably a much harder point. We talked about B for so long because if a team is very good at holding it on defense, it could be an endless point for them. Just because the offense has to try some tricks behind, they have to pry players away, like they need to get up top. Like there's a lot of time to be gained on B that I think arguably makes it a better point overall. And A, it's a bit like, you know, if you look at it here, like you could take a ground fight over here, like you're kind of getting some players filing above you from above, but you can't really see them until they get there. Like there are risks to doing this that I think are not worth it. But that being said, my team has done it because we like to test those limits, and it's something that's really nice to pull out of a hat when you think you can throw the other team off guard and get some time. Because certainly, if you are aware of the risk, and the risks are A, not having a good B, or they could just say, oh, let's just take beam and go all the way through your B and capture E from that side. And then from the A side, if you know they come through B, like you might be in an unfavorable position either coming through back to B, or you have to immediately start contesting E from like this position, which is already a position you might be in anyway if you were holding B and got wiped and they decided to full cap on E or something. So it is something that is very playable, in my opinion, but it's a bit more stressful. That being said, it's actually a good thing to talk about really fast. If you were ever stuck in a situation where you guys have wiped and they have a good E setup, like maybe they have controlled it, whether they've come through A and controlled it all, or they came through B and controlled it all because you guys decided to A-hold. Typically, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to have people controlling the wishbone, they're going to have people controlling the shutter. You are still confined to the same two possibilities because the A door is locked. So busting out into a controlled shutter is not super ideal. I would actually say it's probably better to have, like if they have heavy splash on this doorway here, you can have your sniper rotate with your combo eventually and retake the wishbone area, but probably what the ideal setup is like your scout is opening up the door and your soldier and sniper are typically just spamming the point from here. If that's being hard stuffed and everyone's looking at it, they can maybe even assist with the combo retaking wishbone, because if they're in wishbone, this is a problem. Like you guys would just have to DM fight it, force them back into a worse position, and if you can get here, then you can stop the point anyway and you can keep playing it as if you were holding B, even if you were holding A, and then maybe rotate back to spawn and hold A again. but this is the fight that you would have to do. The combo would have to get control of this area, and then by then you would have like a heavy long range again. You would have a demo from here, long range again, and then if you rotate your sniper here, you would also have their support. I also see some teams will move even a gun into here if they're worried enough about like how much the other team is committing to E. If that's what they're doing, you know, this could work. If a team is forced back into this position here, like their demo is probably, I don't know. Sorry, what I'm trying to say is if the combo is confined into E, you know, they're sitting ducks. It's not a big deal. But if they are corner spamming you guys in Wishbone and trying to like retake it or something, and you can't afford to have your pyro here, like that becomes a threatening ordeal because they could retake Wishbone. So if you ever see that setup, that's the threat to E. Yeah, kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope you kind of understand it. It's pretty much what I'm saying is like you can think about steal in a very formulaic way if you're holding A. It's the same thing as the defense where you have to protect the same angles. It's just a matter of how you get there and how you beat them to it, or how you reclaim these angles coming from an awkward or unconventional position. But the point remains the same. The team who's trying to full cap from this position will play the same angles, the same win cons, and the defense will need to reclaim the same win cons to be able to control the point. And I think the only way that teams lose in these circumstances is if they don't realize how long E takes to cap and they get really nervous and start like running into this damage. Like if your team starts running out here and they're getting splashed and they lose, and you're starting to lose players because they're getting too nervous and peeking the door and not having value and they're dying, that's when you can have a troubling situation. But if you take this long and controlled, and you know you're not letting their sniper get picks, or your sniper's getting picks or clearing the point, and you just play the fact that you have time to recapture these angles, then you will probably do so. I think the defense typically has an advantage there, but teams do lose because they get nervous or they have a bad death, and the worst deaths, in my opinion, are losing a pyro or demo in Wishbone. That is, in my opinion, a game-losing death. So you have to be very careful, because what typically will get you here is, again, playing it a little bit too fast. I talked about earlier, there's a sniper angle. If a sniper's set up there, oh no. If not, I mean, if they are up there, just go a little bit to the right. You'll be a little bit more centered. You won't be able to hold as close, but you can still air blast from here. And then this. So I think this is a very dangerous situation, is when they have a spy or a soldier or even a demo over in this direction. They can sideswipe you, they can corner slash you, and combined with a demo who is stutter stepping this doorway, keeping you farther back, you cannot retake this area, and they could possibly get through and take Wishbone and keep you out of these spots. So dying here is a bad situation because it allows them more freely to take this, but also the second the pyro dies and they don't have the risk of being air blasted anymore, or the pyro's forced back too much, then they can swing their heavy, or they can take an Uber into you without threat of being air blasted in the pit. Like, this is a big problem. So prolonging your life, if this is a threat, I think is worthwhile. And then the only thing you have to do at this point is, if they have a very good setup, you know, they don't have heals over here. They have a health pack, but it's far and it's limited. So like eventually you guys could take this fight, force them out and retake this area, but you know, going too fast, whether it be from the spawn door or here, loses teams this kind of hold. That's just why I wanted to go in so much detail about it, because I think that's kind of the standard thing that loses people the game.
Okay. So I know that it's kind of scary to think about like losing V and then blinking and then like people are stacking on the last. So like what do you do as a player to like stay calm, I guess? To not let like the
To stay
momentum just
calm?
yeah.
Did you say after losing B or after losing like D?
Well, I've always seen that like mistakes on defense are very punishing.
Mm-hmm.
Um and that
Yeah,
especially for last, like the biggest game loser is panicking and then not knowing where to go and then staggering and then dying
that's
and all
true.
that.
Well, it's hard to answer how to remain calm, because in turn that's a skill that I think people have to train through experience. as much as it's so easy to hear, just stay calm, everyone. Like, but a lot of things, at least in our team environments, if your callers are confident and cool and collected and talking about what you're going to do next in advance, people can relax and trust in them to be able to figure it out. I know this is a very domino map and things can happen very quickly, especially because if something bad were to happen on B, C is a giveaway and suddenly you're holding the last 2 points with like a lot of time to make up. Like that can be a nerve-wracking situation, but your focus at that point is thinking about evening your Ubers and getting a really good hold for last. So if something bad happens and people are freaking out because like maybe you guys had the worst B of all time, which my team has had many times. We have thrown on B many times. You kind of just have to think calm and collected. So I talked about on C, like if you guys happen to keep Uber here, like it's a risk, and if you really need to make up time, I would actually say let's just come through. We're going to hold heaven. We're going to give up C, and at this point everyone's expectations can be set. You guys can be, make sure that they can't spam out your heaven for free before they go C. You know exactly where they're going after they cap C. They have two options, which is rotating all the way back or they're coming out behind you. In this situation, you in advance in your map review, you talk about who's going to be watching slow gate while everyone else is holding heaven. And if the call is that they're going to go death hallway, you guys know exactly where you're going to go. You're either going to push through and meet them here, or you're going to even out and take your exchange and do that there. It kind of forces them to take time, and likelihood is you have time to even out your Ubers. The only things that really hurt teams, I think, when they're down to the wire and they don't have much time, is people doing things alone. You have to take advantage of the fact that the caps take a while. These last two caps especially take a long time to cap, and you have time to regroup and go in the units that you're typically confined in at this point of the defense. Making sure you don't lose heaven in advance is a big thing, which is why I say that's a good default. But if anything else, I see people maybe respawning and say, okay, combo's gonna go to lobby, and it'll just be like a demo medic rolling out. Like a demo medic alone are going to die, and it is worth, again, keeping your cool and asking questions and say Pyro, are you good to come with me? And if they say no, don't go without them. Literally check with your players, look at the people around you, make the expectation clear of who goes where. I think at this point, oftentimes, even if a team is holding lobby, it might not be a conventional set of players out here. You might have your scout with the combo here and your heavies in heaven, or maybe your soldiers spotting or spies spotting death hall and your soldiers with the gun. There are variances here, but the biggest thing that will hurt you guys is confusion and this presumption that, oh, somebody else is with them when it's not. People expect people to be with them and everyone thinks it's not them. So a good little map review, I think, on who you expect to be where, or just physically asking them by name to see if they can come with you. That will keep your team calm and collected because you'll have your direction in mind in advance and you'll be able to rely on the confidence of your main call. But again, I think personally, calls aside, the best thing to do is just to make sure you have the people you expect to have with you before you go out and take a risk, because losing demo, especially on defense, especially a DE defense, is pretty game losing. So yeah, specific callouts and making up for lost time is definitely worthwhile. Hopefully that helps. It's a complicated question just because, there's no easy answer. It's a trained skill just to be calm and perform under pressure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Do you have any notable games in mind, um, where I could see these steps in action?
Yeah, actually. Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think overall. So I want to say at least WG had a good season 16 grands where we had very step-by-step pushes, and we had a very quick offense where we had to kind of do some very specific things. I think that's a good watch. That being said, it is also an example of a game where a lot of things go wrong, which is realistic practice. You are going to have games that perform to the book perfect, but likelihood is if you were playing another good team or another team that knows what they're doing, like mistakes are expected because it is an imperfect game. So, knowing possibilities of what might happen and what you need to do is a good thing. Good question on other games though,
You
because
said season 16.
yeah, I want to say was it?
Was that team fun?
Yeah, I think it's Grands one.
Oh,
I
I
think.
watched it. Oh, I watched that. Okay. I'll
Yeah,
rewatch
I'm
it.
just trying to think if there's another game. Kira, do you remember anything? Was there one last season good? I can't remember. I don't know. I feel like MCM had a really good steal, but I can't. It's been a long time since they've played, so I'm not sure if it's like up to date with current playstyles. It's hard. I can't really remember, guys.
No, it's okay. Did you guys win Steel in
It
the Grands last season?
last season we did. It was tighter than we expected, though. Very tight.
Um,
Okay.
Did
I
we play
clutched.
good? Yeah, I mean, he probably did clutch. Oh my god. I just remember they were so much better than we expected in the match. It's another example of an imperfect game, but I can't remember if we were like a very good steal example to watch necessarily. But yeah, I mean, if you want to watch last season, go for it.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Cool. I'll probably end it there then. Let me stop my recording.